And it's Miss Lewsley. I'm going to read 2 chapters today, starting with chapter 7, but this one's quite short, so I thought I'd go for 2 chapters. So, chapter 7, The Room with No Door. The old lady grabbed the prince by the hand, so he was standing right next to her at the library fireplace. Before Alfred could ask Nanny what she was doing, she turned a little hand of the gold carriage clock on top of the fireplace anti-clockwise. As if by magic, the pair were spun into another room. Whoosh! I never knew this room was here, hissed Alfred. Shh! Shushed Nanny. They might still hear us. They listened out for voices in the library next door. As they stood in a tiny windowless room full of junk. There was a rusty metal bath, a broken bicycle, a dog-chewed cricket bat, a weather-beaten picnic basket, a mouldy croquet set, and a battered old Victorian pram with a wonky wheel. Alfred had been all over the palace, but he'd never been in here. Hardly surprising, as the room had no door. Is this a secret room? He whispered. Shh! Shushed Nanny. There were a couple of old, chipped, cut-glass tumblers on a side table. Nanny picked one up and passed the other on to the boy. She then placed the top of the tumbler to the wall and the bottom to her ear. Alfred followed suit. Next door, they could hear someone pacing around the library. Who was it? What were they looking for? Whoever it was, and whatever they were looking for, at last it sounded as if they'd found it. After a short while, the pair heard the library door close. They were safe. For now. In answer to your question, my little prince, began Nanny, legend has it is that there are many secret rooms all over Buckingham Palace. I know of just a few. They must have been built during World War II. Yes, for the royal family back then, in case that stinker Hitler invaded. King George VI. Oh, my little prince, you've been reading all those books piled up in your bedroom. History books are my favourite. I know. George VI had a wife and 2 daughters, continued the boy. The elder one became Elizabeth II. Full marks, clever clogs. Elizabeth II, what a ruler she was. We'll never see her like again. Prince Alfred, who was next in line to the throne, nodded his head sorrowfully. He knew more than anyone of his failings. If only he could be more like the great kings and queens of the past. But nature had played him a cruel trick. He was a sickly child. All of a sudden, Alfred thought he saw something move under an old dust sheet. With his eyes, he indicated to the pile. Nanny mind, what? Whatever it was moved again. Nanny nodded and began tiptoeing over to the sheet. The boy stayed close behind, holding onto her cardigan for dear life. The sheet rose into the air. It looked like a ghost. Alfred wanted to scream, but didn't make a sound. The thing stretched out its arms. Nanny reached out her hand and closed her eyes. Oh, she couldn't bear it either. With one hand, she whipped off the sheet to reveal... Oh, a little girl. Chapter 8. Prince of Nothing. A little girl, dressed in rags, her face, hands and feet blackened with dirt. She was a pathetic sight. All right, chirped the girl. Who are you? Demanded Alfred. Who are you? She asked back. I asked first. What do you think you're doing sneaking in here from the outside? Demanded Nanny. Well? Alfred noticed that the girl was Pongy. Pongy was putting it politely. Pongy is low on the stinky scale. The stinky scale goes from stale to musty to whiffy, then humming, up to pongy, gamey, stinky, fetid, malodorous, reeking up to rank, then acrid, pungdocious, noxious, and finally, stinkiest of all, putrid. However, being well brought up, Alfred was far too polite to mention that the little girl smelled something rotten. Nanny snatched a broken candelabra and brandished it like a weapon. Don't beat me, pleaded the girl. How do we know you're not one of the revolutionaries? Demanded Nanny. I am not, I swear. Alfred noticed the girl was dripping wet. You're soaked, he exclaimed. How did you get into Buckingham Palace? Said Nanny. This place is a fortress. Come on, out with it. I swam. Nonsense, scoffed Nanny. No, it ain't, snapped the girl. Years ago there was all these trains that ran under the city. The London Underground, replied Alfred. I have a book of that upstairs in my room. It hasn't run for 50 years. Yeah, most of the tunnels collapsed ages ago, but there was one that was all flooded. Flooded? Asked the boy. Yeah, the tunnel is underwater. Leads all the way from the Thames to right under the palace. Well, in all my years of working here, I never knew that, remarked the old lady. It's a secret. Nobody knows, hissed the girl. Well, I know now, replied Nanny. Me too, said Alfred. Silly girl, said Nanny. But the girl was not going to be mocked like this. You don't know exactly where it is, though, do you? She retorted, before a smug grin settled on her face. Alfred smirked. This little one had spirit. What's your name? He asked. Might. Might what? No, just might. Might as in M-I-G-H-T or might as in M-I-T-E? I don't know, spelling. They just call me Might, because I'm a little mite. That's M-I-T-E, he said. The little girl just shrugged her shoulders as if to say, I don't care. You still haven't told us why you broke into Buckingham Palace, snapped Nanny. Might gulped. I was starving. My belly hurt something rotten with the hunger. I was looking for a kitchen to rob some food. Then I heard some footsteps and hid in here. Did you not have your dinner? Asked Alfred. Dinner? She explained. What planet are you on? A nibble of mouldy old biscuit is all I've had all day. Really? The prince was flabbergasted. You have absolutely no idea what about life outside this place, do you? Well, in here you've got everything. Outside we've got nothing. The story is there's mountains and mountains of food in this palace, but the king just won't share it, continued Might. Stuff I've only ever dreamed of. Cakes and sweets and chocolate, she said, her eyes gleefully lighting up with the thought. Well, don't have the eggy weg, offered Alfred, and Nanny gave the boy a filthy look. Well, I'm sure we can give you some food, he added. We will do no such thing, huffed Nanny. We don't want to encourage her. First it's her, then we'll be swamped by the great unwashed. No, she is very lucky not to have been shot on sight by the guards. Shot or starved to death, mused Might. I was willing to take me chances. You don't know what it's like out there. That's why one day there is going to be a revolution. I've heard quite enough of this, snapped Nanny. I'm sure there is something that we can do to help those on the outside, said Alfred. Oh, yeah? What are you going to do then, posh boy? Alfred stammered. Well, the truth is, and the truth was, he didn't have the faintest idea. Who are you, anyway? She asked. You don't know? Spluttered the prince. Should I? I am the prince, he announced grandly, as if there was no other way to announce that you were royalty. Prince of what? Asked the girl. Prince of, For once, the prince was lost for words. Prince of nothing, she announced. Judging by the look on Nanny's face, she had heard quite enough. How dare you be so rude, snapped Nanny. It's true. No one out there has seen you royals for years. All we see is the face of this Lord Protector. Goodness knows what he's been up to. I don't want to hear another word out of you, chided Nanny. You show me where this underground river thingy is, and I'll let you go. The girl thought for a moment. I'll show you where it is if you give me some chocolate. The cheek of it, exclaimed Nanny. Please, Nanny, implored Alfred. Let's give Mike some chocolate and some for her family. I don't have any family. My mum and dad were shot by the royal guards when I was only 3. Oh, no, whispered Alfred. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too. There must have been a reason, said Nanny. Perhaps they were revolutionaries. They were shot for stealing a loaf of bread. Alfred was shocked to his core. So this is what his country had become. That's evil, he said. Show me how you got into this palace, said Nanny, changing the subject, and I will bring you the biggest bar of chocolate you could ever imagine. Oh, I can imagine a really big bar, like ginormous. Then show me where you broke into the palace, right now. The little girl looked at her with suspicion in her eyes. I don't trust you, old lady. I don't trust you one bit. Nanny has looked after me my entire life, Alfred announced, jumping to her defence. I couldn't trust her more. Mite looked the boy up and down. I don't trust you either, Prince of Nothing. I'll find me own chocolate. With that, she threw the dust sheet over their heads. Alfred and Nanny coughed and spluttered in all the dust. When they pulled the sheet off, the girl was gone. Mite, called out Alfred. Mite! They paced around the junk room, but there was no sign of the little girl anywhere. She had simply disappeared. Perhaps she was a ghost, after all. Okay, that's the end of chapter 8. I'll do chapter 9 next time. See you then.